Go on. So you're saying, Ingrid, a bit
Yes.
about your background.
Yeah, I'm a communication designer turned visual coach. I used to be a graphic designer on one hand, making money with graphic design, and I loved art on the other hand. And I used one thing to make money and the other thing to whatever, express myself. And I managed to merge the two things in a way that really feels like I have found my superpower. And I'm going to share more of my story in the diagram, so we'll not say much more about that. Maybe if you would be willing to share if you know your superpower already or why you're curious about to identify it, put it in the chat. That would be fun to read. Of course, you don't have to.
Yeah, because I think for Ingrid, I think for a lot of people, your superpower is, it can be a new concept. You know, when it comes to careers, we're not used to thinking about that really. We've got very traditional routes into employment. So thinking about what might be your sweet spot in terms of your role, in terms of what the things you can do and what you're best at, that probably doesn't come naturally to people. So so I'm sure people are really eager to learn how to do that.
Mm. And maybe I have to define superpower a little bit. It does not mean anything supernatural, or that I'm now, because I'm drawing, maybe you know that. Sometimes I say, this is my superpower, my super weapon, but it's not. My superpower is that I'm merging several skills and passions and stuff that I have. A sweet spot is actually a good name for it. One of my clients is a personal trainer, and her superpower is that she's more human than other personal trainers. So she used to hate exercise, and now she can really empathize with those people who don't like exercise and can motivate them. So this is also a superpower, although it doesn't look like one, because she also still wants to lose weight. But for her target audience, for the people she wants to work with, this is just a superpower. So think about this maybe also.
Great. So how do we do that? How can we get started?
I share my screen.
Yeah.
I share my screen and start. This is me. I am Lil. This is my artist's name. It's my last name, but I use it as my normal name, as everything. And these are things that I'm doing: branding, illustration, visual coaching, design, drawing classes, and actually more stuff. I also do paintings, and I do sculptures and stuff. And yeah. But I am, a few years ago, 2 years ago or so, I decided that I was done with doing boring stuff for making money. And I dived into my passion, which is drawing, actually, and I taught myself drawing. I wasn't good in drawing simple stuff like I wanted to. And what I'm doing now is, this is my main thing. I call it brand storyboarding. It's something that I have invented. It's I'm helping my clients in a live session to picture their business, and this is helpful for them to figure out what they're offering and how to talk to their clients. So this here is now my client, a consultant who doesn't know how to connect the dots, and yeah, I don't have to go into details here. And I help them to put the whole thing in a system and to find their message, and how to communicate their thing. What I found out is that not everybody is clear about what their thing is. And that's why for some clients, I do a different, before we do the big storyboard and and this is the basis for the website. For some people, I do this here. Whoops. I have already filled something in. This is mine here. Have to others' problems. Yeah. And so I do with the people who aren't clear about what exactly they want to do. I do this here as a preliminary exercise. And that's what I wanted to take you through today. And the way we're doing it is I will fill this out with my own thing. And you can just work along. And if you have questions, please tell me. You're allowed to unmute yourself and just say something. And I will also do the same thing here with Mark. So we have these two examples. And I will try to do it on my computer. If this for some reason doesn't work, then I have to switch to my iPad. Wait a second, a little bit of housekeeping here. If you have any questions, now is a good point. No questions.
So just to recap then, Ingrid, then you're going to use this superpower diagram and you're going to work through the examples, and people can follow along with their own examples and inputs, and at the end of it they'll have created the superpower.
Yes.
So that's how it's going to work, isn't it?
Yes.
Any questions, you can unmute yourself, as Ingrid said, or if you don't want to do that, I'll be watching the chat so I can throw the questions in there as well. So
because usually I'm not able to. No, you know what, this is lagging, it does not work well. Can I write? That's the newest thing, that as soon as I go on Zoom and there are people on there, then so I will switch to my iPad. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
What program are you doing this? What program are you doing those Venn diagrams in, or overlapping Venn diagrams? What?
The one that you just saw, that was Adobe Illustrator.
Adobe, okay.
And
Thank you.
I'm working on an what is it called? It's called Cintiq, Wacom Cintiq. Now I have to via AirPlay here. There. And I have to find out. Now you should see my iPad.
Yeah.
And this is a program on the iPad that is called Concepts. And this is my favorite. It's my favorite program for drawing. Yeah. And for sketchnoting, it's a wonderful program. Oops. Yeah. Okay, my story. As my profession is that I'm a communication designer. And which is pretty, yeah. I made websites and logos. And I have a very long history with that. So I have been working as employee and in different roles for decades. So these are my solid skills. And it doesn't mean that I love it all. There's some aspects that I do love, but not everything. I love the creative parts of it, but not the templates and not the yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I'm not so happy about here. But it's my background.
So Ingrid, in this section then, so participants here should be putting in their background, some of the skills they've got, maybe the profession if they've got one. That's the sort of thing we're looking for here, is it?
Yeah, but also maybe something that you have been doing in the past and don't do anymore, but you still have maybe some connections. The other day I worked with somebody who had been an actor a long time ago and has never worked as an actor, but still it was there. He had some skills in it, and it had some influence in what he was doing. But maybe just list your history here and your because the thing is, all these buckets are not only buckets for interests or for it's also people. So in every one of these areas, there are people that you might want to work together with. And in my history as a communication designer, I mean, I've also done other stuff. There's also different stations that I now can go back to and revisit. And sometimes maybe I find clients in some place in my history that I wouldn't have thought of. Mark, should we do yours here?
Yeah. I think I think it's interesting because my profession originally was civil engineering, so that was my background. But if I start to think what that means to me, and I think this is an important point here, whilst it's civil engineering, for me, this was about a few things. One was problem solving. So there's a lot of problem solving in civil engineering. There was coaching and mentoring, so supporting team members in the workplace, and probably also speaking and interacting with teams and audiences was also something that I was very interested in. So for me, rather than it be necessarily about civil engineering, it is about those things: problem solving, mentoring, coaching, speaking, presenting. They're all things that really, when I look back on the previous work I did, they're the things that stick out for me as being the important aspects. So when you think of your profession, your bit in this part of the diagram, try not to be too literal with the contents. Think about your background and or your profession or your skills that you enjoy using. Think about the ones that really stick in your mind and are the ones that you think are important and are a part of what you want to use in the future. So that really helped me when I did this work.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to, it might be fun to put it in the chat if you found something. But you don't have to.
Yeah, no, feel free to share
any insights, because it might also inspire somebody else. The next one, personality. The thing that comes out in every single personality test that I'm taking. It's a little bit boring. I'm creative. And I knew that before. So this is my biggest trait, I thought. But then I did take another personality test. It was something called Gallup Strength Finder, something like that. And it turned out that I'm a pretty strong thinker. And that's also true. I knew that also. And that I have a strong strategic side. Strategic. And visionary, or vision, yeah, vision. So these are the things that, apart from that, I'm also identify as a recovering introvert and stuff, is what struck me as most important. And this thinker, strategic, and visionary that I found in this last personality test, I did first after I invented my brand storyboarding, and I thought, it's perfect. I found the perfect thing for my personality. So if I wouldn't have had invented it already after taking the test, I thought I should have. So everything is coming together here.
Yeah.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, so for me, a little bit different from you, actually. So I'm someone who is very organized. I have a lot of like frameworks and different systems that I use. So I suppose I'm more organized that way. I also think I'm pretty calm when it comes to dealing with situations. And I think that is part of who I am. But I also, it's interesting what you said about introversion, because I think I'm also somewhat introverted. And I only realized that probably later on in my career, that working in a big organization with lots of people in an office which is crowded doesn't always necessarily work that well for me, actually. And so there's something about introversion. And I also think there's something about, in terms of my own personality, I like to control my own time. I don't particularly like to have people organize what I'm doing, or, you know, in a big organization, you might have meetings which are organized for you and places you need to be and go to. And I didn't particularly like that. I like being my own, I want to say my own master. That sounds grand. It's not, my life isn't grand in that way, but I do have control of my time and who I work with and the work I choose to take on. So that freedom really is definitely something that is definitely a part of my personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here, by the way. Although I did have jobs that I enjoyed, but I don't want to get back to it.
And I think what just before we go off that, the personality one, I think what happens is we push down some of these personality traits. We deny them. We perhaps recognize that they're there, but we don't let them be, because maybe the role we're working in, maybe the organization we work for, doesn't allow us really to let those personality traits have a voice or be heard, or we can't be our true selves, if you like. And that's okay for, you know, in your career for a certain number of years. But if it goes on too long, if you crush your personality traits down for too long, I don't think that's actually too good for you in the long term. I think it is good to be able to let your true personality express itself. And that's certainly when I started doing things that more aligned with who I was, it was a real game changer for me. It became like being free, you know, free of the inhibitions maybe I had in my previous role. So that's something to consider as well. Yeah.
And then also, these are always also a possibility for people, because if you strongly identify as an introvert or as something of all these types, then these might be the people you want to work with, you understand them. Yeah. Especially, I mean, now you have to have keep in mind that I'm always speaking from building a business perspective and building a brand. That's my what I'm doing. And Mark is more talking about also the possibility of having a job. That is not on my radar. So you have, yeah, here we are a little bit different, I think. And you can just pick what's right for you. Okay, passion. My passion is definitely also creating stuff, making stuff. Creating. If I don't create anything, then I think it's lost time. I disregard everything else. So that's maybe sometimes a little bit too much, but that's how it is. And then I also, what do I have passions for? I'm interested in philosophy. I'm not a specialist at all, but I'm reading stuff that is related, and I'm thinking, yeah, as also my personality says, I'm thinking about the big questions in life. And I also have a spiritual history as a spiritual seeker. That's a bit more in the background now, but it had been a passion for a long time. And well, art. I think these are my passions, apart from my family. But I don't know if you would call that passion. That's just life. Is there anything else I forgot here?
Yoga.
No, that's not a passion. That's just life. That's not that I dislike it, but I'm not passionate. And I like nature, but passion. Yeah. Oh, I keep it focused. What about you?
Oh, fully enough, I'm also I'm quite passionate about creativity, but not in the same way that you are. My creativity isn't beautiful. It isn't something that you would look at and think, oh, that's wonderful to look at. What creativity for me is more about creating programs or workshops, or it might be about creating some sort of new tool or some document. So I do enjoy that. I do enjoy the creative process. So when you think about your own creativity, don't think about it just in terms of it having to look beautiful and it being about the traditional way that we think of creativity. It can be about producing something which has got a lot of utility. So I think creativity is something in there for me. I love reading. I always have done. I've always got at least a couple of books on the go at any one time. I do a little bit of sketching. I think when I did a couple of years back, my wife and I did a small world tour for well, it wasn't that long for me, but my wife's time was longer than I had there. I did sketching every day on that city tour, so that was pretty good. But I also quite passionate about enterprise and creating my own little mini business. I do enjoy that, trying to create something out of nothing and find new clients, and I do enjoy that side. Actually, it is fun to do that. But I'm also very passionate about helping people, because I've always had time to talk to people in works in a big organization, and that is one part I really enjoyed of the the work, and I get to do that all the time now. So that's something that I am really passionate about.
Yeah, it's funny. It's not that I don't enjoy helping people. I just forgot to mention it. It's not. Yeah, there's a different weight on it.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned there something, Ingrid, which is important, that you forgot something, you missed something off your diagram, and your diagram, when you do this, it won't be complete. There'll be things you miss off it, and you can go back round again from the start, and you can add to it and you can change it. So this is never going to be a finished diagram. It's a work in progress. And each time I do this, I think of different things or different nuances of what is important to me, and it's will be the same for you as well. So you can repeat this process and get even more from it.
Yeah, and the good thing here is that you're thinking in terms of overlap and making a whole out of it. Because before, I always thought of one pillar that was art. This was one thing, and the other thing I was doing was design. And these two were completely separate. And so there is something to it in the setup. If you do these overlaps here. So let's go to the problems, and it's not your problems, but other people's problems. And again, I'm always seeing it through the lens of business building, of how can you get out with a program or product or service, and if you don't have anybody who has a problem, and the problem might just be a white wall or boredom in their life, if you're an artist. If you don't find anybody with a problem big enough that they would pay you to solve it, then you don't have a business. But also, if you're an employee, you have to solve problems. But my approach is the working for yourself. So one thing you can start with is you find the overlaps between these things just as a structured brainstorm. How can I, as a communication designer, so now we're talking I'm talking about this part here. Can I create a product that is in the overlap between being visionary and a communication designer? What product or service comes to mind? And of course, now that I'm doing these brand storyboards, it goes in this direction. But I'm also, for example, one thing that comes to my mind is the other day I made a cover for an imaginary magazine title that I designed with a photo of myself that was in our Draw Your Dreams class. So I wrote the word of the year here and some things that I want in this year to happen. So I designed something. So the design and the vision came together in this here. And maybe you can find overlaps in between all of them, but you don't have to. I mean, that's just like an additional brainstorming help. And it's kind of obvious how being creative and making stuff would, I mean, this is kind of everything. Everything defines us. But if I take my interest as creative and spiritual or philosophical, then I might do philosophical postcards or something like that. But now let's go to the problems. You have to, in order to have define problems, you have to find out who has those problems, and that is that might be people from here, the introverts, or maybe something from your passion. If, let's say, you're passionate about dog training, then you might have people here who have problems that you can solve with either with a combination of these three things here, of the profession, the personality, and the passion. And that might require a bit of thinking or a bit of reflection. So for me, it is I'm helping often designers or marketing people, but then also coaches with too many ideas. So this is my problem here. I have to, or my mind. So I can identify if they have too many ideas. Then I do this brainstorming board for him to sort stuff out. Yeah, and that is my superpower, or maybe I should call my superpower. Oops, what happened here? Visual thinking for brand clarity. I don't know if I have time for also finding your superpower or your problem here, because you wanted to also do some practical stuff, Mark.
Yeah, well, it's useful if I can say a little bit about this bit, actually, because it does lead into the more practical side.
Okay.
So when it comes to problems, one of the things that I'm very interested in is people get stuck in their career. They're not quite sure what the next step should be. And the reason for that is because the way we've designed career management is very much about going from education in these swim lanes towards jobs and professions. And then once you're in that swim lane, you continue generally along the same lane. There's not really a lot of changing of that. And for many people, that is okay initially. But for lots of people, and it happened to me, you can get stuck in your career. It may be a good job, but it's not necessarily a good job for you. And it's very difficult to get out of that situation because you're, like I say, the job actually might be a good job, but it just might not be the one that is speaking to you. You don't particularly love the job. And in fact, you know, if your Sunday start to drag and you start to dread Monday, then that is probably the wrong role for you. And that's what happened to me. So having left a career of 20 odd years, I knew exactly what the problem was and who the people I wanted to help. I wanted to help people that were stuck in their careers, that couldn't move forwards or backwards and couldn't really see a way out of the predicament they were in. So it really became pretty clear for me who I could help. So I think when you're thinking about your own problems here, like Ingrid said, you can think about each of these different aspects: your background, your personality, your passion, some of the people that you've come across, some of the problems you've encountered. And for some people, the problem answer comes straight away. It almost falls into your lap. It's obvious what the problem is. And for other people, it takes a bit of thinking. This is why this diagram is something that is can be perpetual. You can keep adding to it, and then the problem does tend to drop out at the end of it if you continue to do that. Yeah, so there were my reflections on the problem bit.
Your superpower is career coaching, or how would you?
Yeah, I mean, I think my superpower really is helping people to get career clarity and find a job they will love. That's what that's what I'm aiming to do with my work.
Mhm.
So do you want me to talk about some of the practical
Yeah.
aspects?
So I will stop sharing here.
Yeah. And
So, nice to see you again.
hello, everybody. We've got so many, just for those that came in later on, there's an administrative error with the names that we all ended up with. So if you've ended up with a name that's not yours, feel free to change it to your real name so we know who you are, and apologies for that. Let's just share my screen then. Okay, let's share that. Okay, so here we are. So I want to talk about some of the practical aspects of how we might take your thing, your superpower, and apply that to some next steps. So if you think about your options, if you like, we quite often don't think we have many options, where in actual fact, we always have a lot more options than we think. And in fact, we always have at least 4 options, I think. We always have the option to stay as we are, do nothing. And we have 3 other options, and I put those into 3 categories, really. So options that are similar to what we're doing now, options that are complementary, and I'll explain what that means in a moment, and options that are breakthrough. So if you think about, this is your existing role, this is what you're doing currently, if you like. So when we think about similar roles, these pinky red circles reflect what might be the options in those categories. So for example, if you're a project manager working in, I don't know, the IT industry, for example, then your option might be to stay within that industry and still be a project manager, but maybe move to a different organization. So it could be that when you're thinking about your superpower, that there's an organization that is better suited for you to work in. So it might be similar to what you're doing now, but it might just be a case of moving to a different organization. Or it might actually be a case of staying in the same organization, but working on a different IT project, which is more akin to your superpower. Well, that option is still very similar to the one you've already got. Whereas the next category is complementary. So this is where some aspects of your current role stays the same, but there's some new aspects to it as well. So maybe, for example, let's just say your thing is the fashion. Let's say you love fashion, you're passionate about fashion, and you're currently an IT project manager. Maybe you could think about working as a project manager in the IT industry. So can you see what happened there? So half of, or part of your role stays the same, but the other half actually speaks to your thing or your superpower.
May I say something about?
Of course you can.
The way I went about with when I invented brand storyboarding wasn't to make a new website and change everything around. I did actually this year. I made one page on my website and called it. It was one product, one service that I offered, and then with over time it grew and I saw it had legs and then it took over and I made it the front page of my website, and I hid everything away that I'm doing also. Yeah. So this was this year's strategy.
Yeah, exactly. So you weren't changing everything one big go. You're actually using parts of what you already had, mm-hmm. and you're adding to that. So that's the second options. That's the complementary role, and then of course we have breakthrough roles. So when we think about changing career, it's often a breakthrough role that we think about. We often think about, I don't know, being having a cake shop, for example, or a coffee shop, or maybe buying a drone and being a drone pilot. You know, normally these are things we think about when we think about a big change in our careers, and they might be the things that you're thinking about. But I want you to just recognize that quite often you can make small or medium-sized changes to your existing role and incorporate your thing or your passion. It might not mean making a big step outside into a completely new thing, but then again, it might do. So I just want to mention that. And also I want to talk about what work can be, because often we think about work as being pretty much standard. It's 9 to 5, it's Monday to Friday, it's a fixed term contract, it's working in a city. When work can be, it can be anything really. It can be part-time, it can be seasonal, it can be voluntary, it might mean remote working, it might mean moving to a different geographical location. It could be short-term or a long-term contract. It could be a portfolio situation where you've got several different roles that you're combining into one. So I said it's to try and loosen your thinking on what your career might be, what it might mean, what it might comprise of, trying to persuade you away from thinking about it as a very traditional arrangement, because there are so many options and different ways you can have a career. It's useful to think about that as well. Then when it comes to using your information you've got, so you've got your thing, your ideas, you've got some ideas in your superpower. Where do you go with that? What do you do with that information? Where can you go after this workshop? So there's lots of ways you can do further research. Of course, there's web search and you can Google things, and that's, that's okay to a certain extent. You've got your existing network, so you can talk to your network about, hey, can we have a coffee? I want to talk to you about some ideas I've got about, what I want to do with my life or my career.
And may I say something?
Mm.
How I started with brand storyboarding was to offer it for free to friends to test it.
Yeah, which is a great way, isn't it? Because there's two things there, isn't it? One is you're actually trying out that role to see whether you enjoy it, whether you can do it, and whether you're good at it, I guess. And also you're getting feedback from the participants about whether it will be interesting, attractive for them, and also to give you some feedback. So that's great. There's a website called All-Star.net, which if you haven't heard of, it's a secret amongst career coaches, and it's actually All-Star.net. So if you Google that, that will bring up. It's a US-based website actually, and it is very good for finding out different career roles and routes and options. So have a look at that. There's lots of job sites, obviously, you can look at. They can be quite traditional. You do tend to get a lot of email when you sign up for these things, but they can be useful. LinkedIn can be useful to explore companies, positions, organizations. So that is certainly something to look at. As is informational interviewing. So informational interviewing is when maybe you meet somebody on LinkedIn that's in the industry. Let's go back to that fashion industry example. You're interested in the fashion industry, maybe you want to be a project manager. You find somebody on LinkedIn that does that, and you reach out to them and say, hey, is there any chance I could buy you a coffee, or we could have a virtual chat for 20 minutes. I'm interested in this industry. And you find out more about what it would take to get into the industry.
Yeah, but do more than one. When about 30 years ago, so I wanted to be an illustrator, I spoke with one illustrator, and he was so great at drawing that I thought I will never ever amount to anything here, and I gave up this route. So yeah, just talk with more people.
Yeah. So remember, what we're talking about here is your passion. So that means that to a certain extent, you have to be bulletproof, but at the same time, you do have to elicit feedback as well. So there's a two-way thing there. Not to be knocked off something that you're really passionate about, but obviously get feedback about how the best way of achieving that is. So that's a good point, actually, Ingrid. There's lots of other information you can use. There's YouTube videos, but anything you can think about, podcasts that you can listen to. I have my own podcast about careers if anyone's interested. And there are professionals you can speak to, coaches and mentors that can help you with your next steps. And then finally, in terms of taking action, what should you do with this information? Well, there's research, which we just talked about. If you know that your passion is a role that's likely to be advertised, then you can seek out jobs and you can apply for those jobs. So that's obviously one approach. You can volunteer and try out something, see whether it might suit you. If it's a business, it's something maybe you could start on the side. You could try it and see how you get on. You could create a business plan. You don't even need to start anything. You can actually just create a business plan and see whether it stacks up. I would say that if you are doing that, don't go mad creating a business plan. Keep it simple and don't be put off too much by that. Obviously, when you do the business plan, if it doesn't add up, then you might want to get some support with your next steps. But that's certainly a possibility for you.
You can draw your business plan. That's what I did, and then I made red circles around the stuff that I wanted to achieve in the future. And actually, I didn't have any idea how I would do that, but now I'm here. It's exactly the red circles that have materialized. I will share that in my newsletter.
Yeah, that's a great idea, isn't it? Because business plans are pretty boring at the best of times, aren't they? And while sometimes you do need to look at the figures and see whether things stack up, we need to be inspired as well, don't we? So visual business plan, great idea. I also think you should speak to your manager. Don't walk away from your organization without speaking to your manager, because the number of people I work with one-to-one where they've found another role and have a conversation with the manager about the fact they're leaving, and the manager says, "Why didn't you tell us you weren't happy? We could have found you something else in the organization. You didn't need to leave." So if you are serious about changing things up a little bit, speak to your manager about it. Have a conversation. Tell them what you're interested in, what is really driving your passion, and is there opportunity for you to move in that direction? Because you'd be surprised actually that your manager is likely to be relatively receptive to that, depending on the manager, of course. And it's always worth having that conversation. Also remember that when it comes to your passion might be something that is a few years off. It might be that actually what you're seeking isn't something you can achieve in 3 months, 6 months. It might be 3 years before you can do it. Your career is going to be long, so don't worry about it being 3 years. Think about the stepping stones that you need to get to be there in 3 years' time or 5 years' time, and move in that direction. It gives you that momentum, it gives you the confidence that you're moving towards something that you're really inspired by. So there are some ideas that I wanted just to share with you all in terms of practical next steps, using this great stuff that Ingrid's given us in terms of helping us to find our thing and our passion, and be able to use that in a very productive and very constructive way. I'm going to stop sharing actually now.
And if you have any new insights, you're welcome to put them in the chat. If something has changed, you got any new ideas? Because I saw that there are already some superpowers in the chat. So
yeah, and that's good to see, isn't it? That people have mentioned the superpowers, and yeah, some people are saying that's me. Hi Sam. And you know, when we have an inspirational talk like we've had with Ingrid today, it's about what we do next. So maybe I'll encourage you to, you know, put in the chat what could you do next? What will you do next to explore these ideas further? We've only been here an hour. In an hour, I'm sure you've come up with some ideas which you can use and you can take away to move your career in a direction which is going to get you using your superpower. What next actions could you take? Have you got anything you want to add in the chat?
And I mean, we're soon wrapping up here. If anybody needs a career coach, We have one on the call. We will send out our contact what's it called, in an email. If anybody wants to learn to draw, I have a drawing class on Tuesdays, which is really nice. I see some of the people here are from the class, and I think we're going to take this superpower thing up and going to do a few drawing sessions around that.
Yeah, we have got a couple of comments in the chat. So we've got Lisa's got a very long to-do list. Sorry about that, Lisa, but hopefully that will move you in the right direction. Thank you, Hope, for your comments. Thank you, Sam. Yeah, still trying to get my passion clear, and sometimes it takes a few goals at this. And what I would say about that is that career management is an active sport rather than a passive one. What I mean by that is sometimes you have to take action to actually find out more about what you want next. It's very hard to think your way into a new career. And I did this for years and years and years. I kept reading different books about it and thinking about what might be next for me. It wasn't until I took action that things happened, because you get new information, you get feedback, and it just becomes real for you. So I'll say that to everyone here, really, that whatever action you can take that action, because that will definitely move you in that right direction. Yeah, the Venn diagrams, they're very useful, aren't they? I hope. Yeah, so lots of people have enjoyed the webinar. I've enjoyed it today. Have you enjoyed it, Ingrid?
Yes,
yeah.
It was fun. I hope it was useful for somebody.
I mean, I like how we finished exactly in an hour as well. I like that. I like keeping to a tight schedule. People have got busy lives, and I hope we've given you an hour of our time, and you've got some benefit. And please do reach out if you need support from either of us in the future.
Yes, and have a great day and evening.
Yeah, bye everybody.
Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ingrid.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Hope.
My mind is like running.
That's good.
Not in an orderly way, so it's okay.
You're one of those.
Oh yeah, no, there's no straight line. It's not even connect the dots. It's just dots. But thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And E-Ailet is hanging around.
I wonder if that's the real E-Ailet.
No, it's not. It's